From SpaceX's repairs and upgrades for the Starship to advancements in heat shield technology, this video covers it all. Witness the astounding capture of the Starship booster using the innovative Mechazilla arms in the next flight. In an incredible leap forward, SpaceX showcases the progress from repairs to upgrades for the Starship and heat shield. After the most recent test flight, SpaceX is already getting ready for the next with ship heat shield upgrades underway among other prep. Comments from Musk suggest they'll be ready in about a month from now with upgraded hardware for Flight 5. This incredible story will start with Flight 5, when a massive rocket booster returns to its launch site and is caught by the chopstick mechanism. It sounds fantastical, but the brilliant minds at SpaceX have devised a clear and exciting plan. Join us as we delve into the latest technological marvels and breakthroughs in space exploration. Stay tuned for an exhilarating adventure as we tackle the forefront of aerospace engineering. Don't miss out on this mesmerizing journey filled with upgrades and cutting-edge developments that push the boundaries of innovation. As we eagerly anticipate Flight 5, today's episode of AB Space is dedicated to this groundbreaking moment. The capture of the Starship booster by ways of the Mechazilla R. It's incredible how quickly things have progressed. Just a year ago today, SpaceX was still grappling with repairs and upgrades for the Starship. After Flight 1, however, through relentless effort, they managed to conduct 3 more flights. The recent Flight 4 was especially groundbreaking, marking the first time a rocket was fully landed. This success sets the stage for SpaceX to pursue the ambitious goal their founder discussed a few months ago. If the landing on the virtual tower with the booster works, then we will actually try with Flight 5 to come back and land on the tower. Recently, Musk tweeted, "Next flight, we will try to catch it with giant Mechazilla arms, inspired at least a part." There's no doubt that the upcoming flight will see the booster returning to Starbase and being caught by the arm. The goal is clear, but how will it happen? Here, let's find out. This will come back, it will have an impact point that's out to sea, so it will have to steer itself towards the tower with the catch arms. Yes, everything will unfold, just as we imagine. After a journey lasting about 3 minutes, the booster will separate from its companion. On previous flights, it took about 4 more minutes to land in the ocean at T+7 minutes, 22 seconds. However, on this flight, the booster will undertake a longer journey back to Starbase. Including other operations, the landing will likely occur over 10 minutes after liftoff. As Musk explained, the booster will need to steer itself towards the tower. 2 critical factors come into play here: deceleration and navigation. This will be managed by 2 systems, the grid fins and the engine. In fact, both systems performed admirably in the recent flight. There were no incident reports involving the grid fins, and they were intact when booster 11 landed. Despite the middle engine breaking down, it did not affect the landing process. The deceleration from over 1200 to approximately 10 km per hour in less than 20 seconds is clear proof of that. However, challenges still await SpaceX in complex missions, like catching the booster with the Mechazilla arm. In Flight 5, both the grid fins and the engine will need to not only replicate their performance from Flight 4, but also improve upon it. For instance, although the engine decelerated effectively, many believe that 9 km per hour is still too fast for a precise landing on the Mechazilla arm. SpaceX will definitely need to address the engine issues soon. One engine failed shortly after liftoff and another during landing. This likely results from excessive heat and the constant switching on and off of the landing engines. These factors can easily cause problems, as evidenced by the recent engine failure that caused a fire when the booster was close to the water. Fortunately, it didn't affect the other engines, but this issue needs to be resolved quickly. In short, full engine operation is crucial for successful navigation and deceleration, leading to a safe landing on the Mechazilla arm. Not only does the vehicle need to perform flawlessly, but the launch tower, especially the chopsticks mechanism, must also work perfectly in the next flight. The chopsticks will need to open and close quickly, precisely coordinated with the booster's movement. The timing of this action will be measured in seconds. Even the slightest delay could result in an explosion. Inside the chopsticks, an important system called an actuator will align the booster's position, helping it fit accurately with the orbital launch mount. I and perhaps all of you hope that SpaceX can resolve these issues to ensure a safe landing. Our expectations is that the booster will return on the right track to starbase, decelerate, and steer properly. The chopsticks below will then open an ideal space for the booster to enter, then close to hold and lower the booster. The actuator will then adjust the booster's position, and finally the chopsticks will rotate and place the booster on the orbital launch mount to complete the mission. However, unexpected incidents can happen during this series of actions. According to Elon Musk, the success rate for the upcoming attempt is only 50%. SpaceX is certainly preparing for unforeseen situations. One proof of this is the backup solution that Elon Musk recently revealed. If this method is used, the period before the booster approaches the launch tower will be extremely important and monitored very carefully. As Musk stated, they will keep a close eye on the booster's status. In my opinion, SpaceX will need to monitor both the vehicle and the launch tower. If any problems arise, the booster will return back and self-destruct in the ocean, similar to the vertical landing procedure in previous flights. Regarding the landing location, I believe SpaceX will aim to land it as far from the coast as possible to minimize the impact on humans and animals. This area will be clearly designated by the agencies and not MAR, or a notice to mariners, or hazard warning before the flight. But let me emphasize once more that landing with the Mechazilla arm remains SpaceX's ambitious plan. The current launch license remains unchanged for these new missions. Starting ahead, SpaceX will need to submit a launch license modification to the FAA. Following the success of Flight 4, confidence in successfully landing the booster with the Mechazilla arm has surged, yet skepticism lingers regarding this daunting task. During the feasibility of this mission, much discussion has centered on another crucial factor, the new launch tower. Many experts and observers argue that landing both stages, or just the booster itself, will likely hinge on the completion of this new tower. This viewpoint is understandable because with a dedicated tower for each stage, the process of catching and securing them becomes more efficient. SpaceX would also gain additional time to inspect and prepare each tower before launches. Moreover, the new launch tower serves as a contingency plan in case the current one encounters significant issues. But even though I'm a big fan of the two towers, I only partially agree with this perspective. In my view, catching the booster can proceed effectively with the current launch tower. Firstly, this upcoming endeavor focuses solely on the booster, not the entire rocket. Secondly, if issues arise, they could stem from various factors, and it wouldn't be fair to solely attribute them to the launch tower. Moreover, let's consider the chopstick's performance before Flight 4. It consistently handled stack and destack operations with reliability. Compared to many other systems, Chopstick has demonstrated a high level of dependability thus far. Musk has also stated that the tower will withstand thousands of landings, further bolstering my confidence that the current launch tower is sufficient for this task. Another factor supporting my viewpoint is the potential delay in the construction progress of the new tower. Currently, the last two tower segments in Chopstick are en route to Texas. Once they arrive, it will take several weeks for them to reach the assembly site at the launch site. Based on past construction timelines, which approached nearly a year, estimated the new launchpad construction could span 4 to 5 months. Musk has projected Flight 5 schedule for July, just a month away. While there might be some delay, it shouldn't be significant. Additionally, the FAA's recent decision not to investigate the mishap in Flight 4 suggests that Flight 5 will likely proceed with a single launch tower. In typical SpaceX fashion, setbacks like these won't hinder overall progress. SpaceX remains committed to achieving full rocket reusability this year. While very ambitious, SpaceX does have a few developments going in their favor for a quick turnaround, including no mishap investigation from the FAA. That being said, acquiring a possibly modified launch license, replacing a new heat shield, and preparing to launch again is no easy feat. Here I'll go more in depth into new developments that impact Starship's timeline, how realistic a launch in 1 month is, what to expect in the coming weeks, and more. A few days ago during a live stream, Musk was quoted saying that the next launch is probably in about a month. This is a bold statement, but there are a few big things going in SpaceX's favor. For one, only yesterday was reported that the FAA will not be requiring a mishap investigation for IFT-4. Specifically, the agency was quoted saying, the FAA assessed the operations of the SpaceX Starship Flight 4 mission. All flight events for both Starship and Super Heavy appeared to have occurred within the scope of planned and authorized activities, they said. In other words, the last launch from a technical standpoint didn't produce any shocking results, and despite the ship landing about 6 kilometers off its target, it was deemed acceptable and likely accounted for beforehand in a possible scenario. With the booster landing right on target as confirmed by the company, the FAA decided that no investigation was needed. When it comes to launching Starship, the FAA plays an extremely big role in whether it takes a long time or the turnaround is very quick. Since the first launch, both the results of the integrated flight tests and the efficiency between SpaceX and the FAA have improved. After integrated flight test 1, it took 212 days of work, FAA approval and preparation until the second launch in November. After that, it only took 117 days to launch a third time after the second attempt. Most recently, SpaceX managed to launch Starship again after only 84 days. Combine this trend with the recent launch meeting just about all expectations, and launch in a month or so doesn't seem too crazy. However, there are a few important constraints that could push the optimistic month launch timeframe back. The first has to do with the heat shield replacement. Right now, SpaceX is in the process of stripping every single heat shield tile off of Ship 30. Once they're all removed, teams will then add a new ablative material layer, which will act as a backup in the event a tile fails at any point during the launch. So far, they've made some impressive progress by taking off about 1/3 of the ship's tiles in close to a day. This suggests complete tile removal in only a few more days, and then the new application process would start. Although, it's important to point out that removing the tiles is one thing, adding a brand new ablative material across the majority of S-30's body is another. This is a completely new process, and something teams have not yet done at this scale. Depending on the exact style of ablative material and how it interacts with the tiles placed on top will help determine if it's a relatively smooth and simple process, or something that takes a lot of time. In the next few days, we might see SpaceX start adding, which would answer a lot of these questions. Either way, the tile and general heat shield change is going to be a time-intensive process that could impact the next launch date. Another important consideration that could take some time would be a launch license modification. In addition to Elon saying the next launch would be in just about a month, he also stated multiple times that they want to try and catch the booster on the next attempt. While this is still somewhat up in the air, if they decide to try a catch, it will require a modification involving the FAA. Here, the agency would make sure that the booster returning to the launch site for an attempted catch wouldn't pose any risk to public safety, since the flight profile would be changed from the previous attempt. This process would take some time and could hold back IFT-5 as they wait for approval. On the other hand, if SpaceX decides to hold off on the catch attempt, it would make the process much simpler and faster, which is something to consider. The final factor involves Stage 0 and the orbital launch mountain in particular. While the water deluge and steel plate combination have been helping keep everything intact, withstanding 33 Raptor engines is not easy. If SpaceX decides to replace any clamps or relevant infrastructure, it could take some time. Thankfully, there are plenty of teams and work can be done on multiple projects at once. Relevant to the next launch, how long it takes in Starship's future is the heat shield. Musk recently talked about the challenges of creating a truly rapidly reusable orbital heat shield that could survive her entry and soon after be ready for the next launch. Each tile used cement that required 16 hours to cure. After the tile was affixed to the cement, a jack held it in place for another 16 hours. On Starship, when the entire heat shield is installed, there are around 18,000 tiles in total. This helps a lot in the time department. The specific material is also more advanced, improving the overall process. Even so, let's not to say that more work isn't needed. Musk was quoted saying, It's very tricky to put these tiles and have them work well because the tiles are ceramics. So there's a lot of expansion and contraction happening while trying to keep all these brittle tiles from cracking or breaking off. The good news is that even as SpaceX works to improve and alter the heat shield, it still managed to keep Starship mostly intact on the last launch. The steel and now the addition of the extra ablative will give them some leeway going forward. Before IFT-4, SpaceX took some time to upgrade the vehicles based on flight data from the previous integrated flight test. For example, the company said in a statement, SpaceX implemented hardware changes ahead of Flight 3 to mitigate this issue, which resulted in the booster progressing to its first ever landing burn attempt. As far as upgrades, they said, super heavy boosters for Flight 4 and beyond will get additional hardware inside oxygen tanks to further improve propellant filtration capabilities. In utilizing data gathered from Super Heavy's first landing burn attempt, additional hardware and software changes are being implemented to increase startup reliability of the Raptor engines and landing conditions, they said. With how well the last flight went, necessary upgrades could be minimal. This supports a quicker turnaround and a launch that's not too long from now. No matter the case, SpaceX is going to be very busy over the next few weeks as they prepare for IFT-5. As time goes on, we should get even more relevant information and a better idea of when the launch will take place. SpaceX has already started working on Starship's heat shield in the process of removing all of its heat shield tiles. The next step involves the application of a new ablative and then attaching the tiles back onto the new surface. This combined with the FAA requiring no mishap investigation, and the next launch could be quite soon. We will have to wait and see how it progresses and the impact it has on the space industry. Thank you very much for watching. And that's about it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and that's all for today's update. If you enjoyed watching and found it useful, please make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. And if you want to support our channel and if you want to be up to date, you can become an exclusive member, so click on our perks through the link in the description below. Thanks to watching and see you next time.